servants. They skip servants. Okay, and now keep going.
And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was not yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of God is fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them.
Okay, hold up. What's the next group of things they got destroyed?
The sheep.
The sheep. Okay, and note the servant said that the fire of who?
God.
Well, now hold up. Didn't we establish before that God wasn't the one who was doing this? But that got to be important. Why did that get to be important? Because later, Satan is going to get Job to curse who? Curse God. Satan's going to try to get him to curse God. So it's important that the enemy lay the foundation. Hey, it was the fire of God that came down. That wasn't a bit more the fire of God than the man on the moon. Yes.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that point out, because you know what? Oftentimes we hear the same thing now when things happen to people that are of an extremely negative case. Then we say, you know, it's said to us, why did God do this? And you know, when we see all these hurricanes and all this stuff, we point to God. Now, we established that this was not the fire of God. And I mean, I'd like to see, is there any place written that we can prove? Because this is important. Because people are saying, why does God allow babies to die? Why does God, you know? So is there anything here?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll write that one down. I'll come back to it. I'll shoot you a quick email to answer that. Okay, or you can pull it up online later on the page of the GOC page, and I'll answer that. I'll search it out for you. But in the interest of time, let me continue on in this direction right here. Okay? And he said the fire of God came, and what else? And he burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. Okay, go to verse 17.
While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the Chaldeans, thank you, dear, made out 3 bands and fell upon the camels, and have carried them away. Yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped along to tell thee.
Keep
While
going.
he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, thy sons and thy daughters eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee.
All right. Read the last part of that.
Then Job arose and rent his mantle, and shaved his head, and fell down upon the ground and worshipped, and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Okay. Now, we're talking about a spiritual fight here now. Okay.
Wow.
First off, we find that the servants are dead. His possessions are gone. The houses are destroyed. And now even his kids are dead. All of this is a result of a conversation between whom? Now, was Job privy to that conversation?
No.
Now here comes the spiritual fight. Let's go over here with us now. So Job appears before God and says, hey, you know what? And God says, you know what, there's Rick. Have you considered Rick? You know what? It's hard to get Rick mad at you. He have no hate in his heart for you. And Job says, well, you know what? If you remove the hedge, Rick will create so much hate in his heart that not only will he hate his fellow man, but he'll also hate you. And God says, very well, go ahead. He's in your hands. But you cannot touch any one of his family's life. Satan leaves. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, let's look at little Jelante. Satan decides to attack Jelante because he knows there's one thing that's really, really, really near and dear to my heart, and that's my little babies. Okay, many things you can mess with, but don't mess with my wife and don't mess with my kids. Okay? So now anything else, now you can have that car out there because it don't run half the time anyway. You try to start it on Monday, it might not start. Okay? But everything else you can have, but don't mess with the kid. So what did Satan decide to do? All right, Satan decides to attack the kid. But now God put a what on Satan? A limitation. You cannot touch the life. So what did he do? He decided he was going to burn him to no end. A spiritual attack. Because see, as I searched, I'm like, Lord, why this? Why this? But see, if you don't understand the battlefield, then you'll be fighting in the wrong direction. At some point, you have to understand this is not about Jelante, and it's not about anything that he's done. That means that, come on, there's got to be a battle between God and Satan. Rick, you need to step out of this one. Because this is not your fight. Okay. Now, what was the struggle? Satan decided, can I get Rick to do what? Hate. Because if I hate my brother, that's a what? Got to see the battlefield. You see, we'll run around and we'll say, oh, you know what? God spared his life. Well, that really wasn't the victory because God had already put a what? A limitation. So that wasn't a sparing. So now all of a sudden I stand in church Sunday morning and I'm shouting the victory because God spared his life. But now in my heart I'm mad, I'm angry, and I'm upset over this person who did this to my baby. Now Satan done left and went back to God. And what did he say? Told you.
Got it.
Told you. I get him to do it. Now I'm running around shouting the victory because Jelante is healing. I'm running around shouting the victory because, oh, God is healing his body. And according to the doctors, but for the scarring on his body, you never would have knew the kid was burned. Okay, because of what he's able to do, the mobility and things like that in his body. And they're even surprised at the rate in which the skin is replacing itself. Okay, so now that's nothing but God. So I'm running around shouting, oh, Satan tried to take my baby. No, he didn't, because he wasn't allowed to take the baby from the beginning. The fight was, can I get Rick to hate this individual?
That's right.
So all of a sudden, in the case of Job, we running around and we shouting the victory. Oh, God spared his life. That wasn't the fight. The fight was, can you get him to curse? Curse God and die. That was the fight. So many times, Satan will try to hit us with fear because the Bible said, who's going to have their part in the lake of fire?
Fearful.
The fearful, and who else?
Unbelieving.
So all of a sudden, Satan going to hit you with fear. Now all of a sudden, you go to work on Friday and you hear tell that the bosses are coming in and they're going to lay off 5 departments. And they're going to send 5, they're going to fire off five different departments, and yours is one of them. So you go to school, you go to work on Monday, and all of a sudden they lay off Department A. All right, well, you still holding on. Then all of a sudden they lay off Department B on Tuesday. Now you're driving home and you're getting a little worried. All of a sudden you go to work on Wednesday and they done laid off the 3rd department. Now on your way home Wednesday, you're all mad. You ain't got nothing to say to your spouse.
Come on, say that.
You're mad, then you walk in there and you know what you say? You shouldn't have bought that car. Or I told you we shouldn't have got this. All this, that, and the other. Now how we gonna make it? Now how we gonna make it? But see, God had already put a limitation on Satan and said, you can't touch this person's job. Now all of a sudden you go to work on Thursday and everybody done left and went back to where they were going and they done with all they fired. So you come to church on Sunday morning, you shouting the victory on how God spared your job. God never spared your job because your job was never in jeopardy. The fact of the matter was, can I get you to fear? And when you got home, you're driving home so much that the night before, you can't even sleep at night. Because you're worried, you're fearing, you're stressing, you're doing this. Now Satan is back up in there hollering, I told you I'd get her, I told you, and you in church shouting, he saved my job. Look like to me, you'd have missed the whole battle. Amen. You'd have missed the whole battle. You missed the entire thing. And saints of God, we got to get to the point to where we see the real fight. And in order to see the real fight, you have to have what Elder Oliver was teaching last week, a transformed mind. Because if you don't have a transformed mind, you will spend all your time in the natural. He saved my job. Because you're in the natural, you're not understanding the spiritual. Oh, but now you just spent the whole night fearing, worrying, stressing, this, that, and the other. Because you can only see the natural. You got to get to a point to where you understand it's not about the natural. My job does not determine whether I eat. My job does not determine whether or not I drink. My job does not determine whether or not I ride or I walk. What determines that is the blessings of the Lord. God determines that. But until you can have a transformed mind and get yourself out of the natural and into the spiritual, then you'll never see the real fight. And you will never reach the level of victory that you're supposed to reach.
That's good. That's good.
Okay? So, and then continuing on. So now you have to determine, well, how do you know what the fight is? Now we get into how to get the victory.
All right.
Now there are many different weapons, as Elder Oliver pointed out. But in the interest of time, we're going to look at one of them. Okay, now saints, understand that there's so many. Okay, so please don't think that Brother Rawl is saying this is the only weapon you have in your arsenal. Okay? But as he was saying, and your armor is not necessarily a weapon. Because I agree with him, armor is not a weapon. However, though, Paul said put on the what? Now, whole means that lends itself to the connotation that you might go out half-dressed. Now, if you go out half-dressed because you didn't put on the whole armor, then let me help you out. You're going to be defeated. Why? Because either you don't have on the helmet of salvation or the breastplate of righteousness, or your feet is not shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. But somewhere or another, you're going to be destroyed because you went out half naked. Okay, now, but let's talk about that offensive weapon. Okay, a little bit on prayer. Whenever you get ready to go into a fight, you get ready to go into a battle, the first thing you do is you get the briefing. Okay, we get the commanding general's briefing. And the first thing in prayer God will always do is he'll give you a warning order. And what we would do is, if we knew that the commander was about to give a briefing, what a lot of the lower leaders would do is they would give a warning order. Hey, get ready. Because the real order is coming in just a few. Get yourself ready. Start getting your gear ready. The Bible says what comes before destruction?
Warning.
You'll always get a warning order. If you have any type of prayer life,
That's right.
Amen. You will always get a warning order.
That's right.
God will alert you that trouble is on the way.
That's right.
You will never be overtaken and you'll never be blindsided.
That's right.
But if you do not have a prayer life, and I'm not talking, now we'll get into exactly what that prayer life is, so I won't jump that far. But if you do not have a prayer life, then you won't get the warning order. So, and if you don't get the warning order, then you won't know to show up for the real order. And if you don't show up for the real order, you don't even know who you're fighting. And you don't even know what equipment to take. Because you aren't ready. And that means you're going to step out on the battlefield and you're probably going to get defeated. Okay? So you'll always get a warning order, because warning comes before what?
Destruction.
Okay.
Come on.
All right? So therefore, in your prayer life, you need to develop prayer on a regular basis.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Okay? You need to develop prayer on a regular, consistent basis if you want to be victorious. All right? Next, you have to have a desire for prayer. And saints, understand something. I'm not talking about a desire for prayer because you need a new car or you need your electric bill paid. You have to have an insatiable appetite for God. You must have a desire down on the inside. It has to become an addiction to you. You know, like when you're addicted to cigarettes, you can't